LiveFest Club. And we are super excited to have here our guest and a good friend of mine, Mr. Gillian of SlimTronic5k and the Rebellion. Yeah. Super excited for multiple reasons. We've got a great show. We're talking about a lot of exciting things, a lot of interesting stories, and then we're going to finish this up with a live performance of a couple of originals.
Wow.
I'm a big fan. I've seen you perform multiple times. I love it, and I can't wait for the audience to see that. So please stay tuned so that you can see these performances at the end, because it's going to be great. Good stuff.
I'm excited. First ever live performance at the LiveFest Club today.
It is. We're just kicking off the LiveFest Club, as you know.
Yeah.
We've got a long list of entertainers that have expressed an interest in coming on the show, but we're very selective.
Absolutely.
Very selective.
It's a elite club.
No, what's that?
Setting the bar low so that when the other guys come in,
The bar has been set very high.
Yeah. No, we're starting high,
So I'll take it.
and we'll end low like most nights end, right? Especially in the music
I'll take
industry.
it. I'll take it.
Right? We start high, we go low, and then hopefully we get back high again. So anyhow, super happy to see you. Super happy you're here. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's get started. You know, one of the things I think is always really helpful is, you know, take us back to childhood. Take us back to where you're from, where you were born, what was it like growing up, all that good stuff. You know, the big influencers in your life.
I'm so laughing because I had therapy this morning, and my therapist asked basically the same question, and I feel like that conversation was drastically different than this one's going to go. Hopefully, I don't cry in this one, but
Yeah, feel free, bro. We're raw and we're real here at LiveFest
cool,
Club. So
cool.
whatever.
I'm not a big crap. Grew up the son of a music minister. Was born in West Virginia. Moved to Alaska when I was, 6 months old. Left from there to Central Florida, Orange City, Florida, and when I was about 3 and some change years old, and grew up in my mom's praise and worship teams and all that, and it sucked the soul out of me.
Let's take a step back. Worship. Tell me about that when you say suck the soul out of you.
So yeah, church is not for me. It's not. I'm not a very religious person. I don't adhere to the same beliefs that most people do, or a lot of people do, especially in America. So I always felt like so out of place there and such a misfit because I had to be there. My mom was kind of like a package deal. You know, when she would be hired at a new church, she came with my dad, who's a sound guy, my brother's a drummer, my sister's both singers and actors, and I'm a performer. And so when we would go to a new church, it was like this whole big old thing. I'm not trying to say it was free child labor, but that's basically what it was. Is we had to do all these tasks in the church, and I just felt really out of place. Being like up on the stage where they would have, my mom was one of the pioneers of like the contemporary worship movement that happened, started in the 80s. And I'm grateful, don't hear me saying I'm not grateful for my time, because I did learn a lot of very valuable skills. Playing with other people is a big one. You would be amazed how many people start playing music and never play with anyone else. I look at the band I'm in, it's called Rock Bark. It's an Irish band, and I look at that band because half of the band has never been in a band before. They don't know what it's like to play with other people, to like harmonize with other people, and so I learned all of that there. I learned how to be a performer. I learned how to be on, and say the right things, which was part of what bothered me. It's like, I'm not saying what I actually believe, I'm just saying what I'm supposed to say. I don't like those situations, I don't like to pander, you know what I mean? And so, but they taught me music, acting. We did a lot of acting, a lot of theater, a lot of musicals, which went even past, the church. We were always in community theater every summer, my brother and myself, acting, and anything we could do to kind of express ourselves artistically. My mother and my father were really good at fostering our creative sides. Me in particular, which is probably gonna sound terrible to say, you know, to my other siblings, be like, they love me more, which is not what I'm saying, but they saw I was different than most kids and different even than my siblings. And they're like, this kid can have a different life. He's not going to college. He's not going to do the normal routine of things. He's
going to take his own path.
He's going to blaze his own trail, and so they really fostered that. Thankfully, I'm so grateful for that. And like I said at the time, I really hated it. You know, I kind of resented my mom at times for putting us in those environments. And you know, for a long time while I was in it, you know, I it's like, why? But now that I'm out of it, I'm not gonna go back. But now that I'm out of it, I recognize all of the great that came out of it. So, there's 4 of us kids growing up in the house. We all played music. You know.
What was your first instrument?
Well, my mom started us on piano. My mom is the best musician I've ever met in my life. Unbelievable piano player. Her sight reading skills are disgusting. You could put any piece of music in front of her that she's never seen before and play it flawlessly. And I've always envied that. And I kick myself to this day because my mom tried to get us on piano when we were little, and I just wasn't having it. And I think a lot of it was because it was my mom. You know, who wants to take piano lessons from their mom? You know what I mean? And so we started playing. She started teaching us music theory at about 3 years old. One of my earliest memories is my mom sitting on the floor with us, holding up flashcards with different rhythms on there that she would have us clap out and count out. So, you know, 3-4 years old, we understood music theory, or we had a base level understanding of tempo and time signature and rhythms and things like that. We hadn't quite got into the musical theory side, like tonally speaking. But I didn't take to the piano, unfortunately. And I know the moment that I knew I was going to play music, I hadn't fallen in love with music yet. And I think a lot of it was the church stuff. I just didn't like what was going on. But my dad, he would, when my mom wasn't around, I probably shouldn't say this because my mom's going to watch this. She probably knows everything anyway. But when mom wasn't around, dad was really loose when we were kids.
Wait for a second. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, I'm not even going to incriminate my old man. He's not here anymore, but I don't want to incriminate him. But he was very loose. And so one day my mom was gone, and he pulled his record player out in the kitchen, and he said, "Hey, you want to hear something cool?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was in the 4th grade, and he put on Tower of Power's Urban Renewal record, and track number 4 is a track called "It's Not the Crime," and he put that track on, and my head exploded. I could not even comprehend music that could be like that. I had never heard anything like it. I were mostly listening to the church stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this? And he's like, it's funk music, man. I was like, this is crazy. I love this. But there was this instrument that kept taking a spotlight through the song, really holding down a lot of the low end. And I said, what instrument is that? He said, it's a baritone saxophone. I said, I want to play that. And that was the spark for me, was that moment. And they went and signed me up the next day for band. I played alto sax. It was technically my first instrument. Playing saxophone because I was too small to hold a bari sax. So I played that for a few years before, I grew into a bari sax and then transitioned to bari sax and played that forever, my whole middle school and high school career. I still pull out my sax every now and again and play it just to see if I remember how to play.
What high school band?
I was in Countryside High School in Clearwater, Florida.
Okay.
And then I went up to Irmo High School in Irmo, South Carolina, and then Columbia. I went to 3 high schools. I went to 4 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 3 high schools. So we were constantly moving.
Were you moving within town or are these in different cities?
Different cities and states. Yeah. My mother was mostly in the Methodist church, and in the Methodist church, they rotate their personnel around. I don't know why they do that every few years. They switch people out. It's a weird thing, and I may be making that up. That may have just been something that was told to me because every church we went to had its nefarious activities and constantly, things going on. And so it may have just been told to me why the pastor was moving to a different church. I don't know. I could be making that up entirely. That's just what I was told when I was younger. But we were, it seemed like every year and a half, we were moving again.
So where are you right now? Circa how old were you?
So this would have been,
From what time frame to what time frame?
well, I started playing in fourth grade, and I don't know how old you are in fourth grade, but back in the high school years,
You're like
we were
8.
around something like that.
Eight about.
My high school years, I left high school at 17, so it's probably about 14 or so, 13 maybe going into high school.
In your early teens, what was that like? Your early teens, 13, 14 years old, what experiences did you have?
A lot of the same stuff, but we happened to be at this church that shall remain nameless in Columbia, South Carolina, and it was wild. The youth group that we were part of was just shenanigans, man. There was so much bad stuff happening,
Really?
which is again part of why I was like, this can't be what church is about. Like,
Well,
kids
now I
living
can see
together.
the confusion too, like, where you're like you said, is this what church is about, or
Yeah.
or is this not what it's about?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's the complete opposite of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, because I only heard the politics of church.
And when you say shenanigans, come on, man.
A lot of drug use.
Really?
A lot of kids sleeping together. I don't know how much I want to incriminate people. I'm not gonna say any names.
Right.
But there was like adult children things going on, or adult student things going on.
And what was the average age of the kids in those situations?
Well, they were all
Teens?
right about my age, about 14, 15. That's when I started really getting into it all. Was through that youth group. I remember the first time I really started experimenting with drugs. I hate that term, but that is kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Was we were on a retreat, a youth retreat to some beach, and a buddy of mine who's still a friend of mine today and is sober and clean, and I love that. But I was so sick that weekend, and my parents were like, "We can't go," and I was so bummed because I wanted to go so bad. All my friends were going, and it was going to be an awesome time. And so I'd gone to the doctor, and he'd given me codeine. Or something similar. I don't remember exactly what it was, but pills, and painkillers or whatever they are. And I got there, and my buddy was I'm not going to name because he'll probably watch this too and be like, dude, why did you name me this? He crunched up the pills and snorted them, and I was like, oh, okay. And that was the first time I snorted pills. And that spawned a lifetime of like addiction and substance abuse issues that all happened right around 15, and honestly it was because of that church.
Wow.
The kids who sold me drugs went to the youth group there. The youth leader, who was not like a youth pastor, but the youth leader, would go across the street to the what was Eckerd? You have to remember Eckerd?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably, I don't know if those exist anymore or not.
If they do, not bad.
That many.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like in Clewiston somewhere. They might
Like maybe,
Yeah, they were they were almost like a predecessor to Walgreens and CVS.
yeah. And
They're definitely more Eckerts, right, than the others, I think, back in the day.
Yeah.
back then, for sure.
Maybe they were bought out to maybe like CVS or.
There was like Eckerd and Rite Aid. That was like
Right.
big
Right, yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
But she would go across the street. There was an Eckerd directly across the street from church, and she would buy us all cigarettes. And this is the lady who's supposed to be like our leader, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
as a full-grown woman, you know, doing this with my kids, you know, so.
Were you hooked instantly on drugs when we tried for the first time? Yeah, just like that.
Yeah. Still to this day, man, I can't.
You wanna? You said same. So
Yeah.
you got some experience there.
Yeah, I remember. I actually didn't try drugs, really. Smoked, tried weed with buddies in high school. Weed didn't do anything for me. But on my 21st birthday, we had gone out, long night out, did some drinking, and a couple of my buddies, we're going to get some cocaine. I never had tried cocaine. And
That's my drug of choice.
try some. It's going to even you out with, the drinking. And I did a line, and I was like, where has this been all my life?
And
I was
how old? You were 21. But
Yeah.
where were you? What town?
Naples.
Wow.
Yeah, we had gone to, we started out with a couple bars. We ended up going to Lookers, in Fort Myers, and 2 and 3 in the morning. And buddy said, get some, cocaine. And it was the first time I ever really, I've been around it before, but was actually, now that I think back, I've been around it before, and I was scared of even trying it. But for that night, I decided to try it, and I was instantly hooked.
Yeah. It's my drug of choice too.
Is that common that people are? I'm right now I'm 2 for 2 on instantly hooked on that. Is it genetic that you're susceptible to it,
I think if
or is that? How common is that with people that first try their
But here's the thing, it's dependent on the person, I think, because I know people, and I'm sure you do as well, Slim, that will do recreational drugs. They'll do it for New Year's or birthdays. Myself, there is no do it on Friday and shut it off for a month. I'm going hard. I'm going on 3-4 days, and it's not stopping. Yeah.
Is that what they call a bender?
That's what they call a bender. Absolutely. And I'm going on a 3-4 day bender, and I'm not stopping until all of it's gone, and probably need to get my hands on more, And then unfortunately later on in life, I discovered opioids, and then the opioids turned to heroin, and that's a whole other battle, and I'm sure we'll get into that more. But
have you ever gone down that path?
Not heroin, no.
Opioids, meth.
I've smoked crack. I've done coke, obviously. This weekend, I spent the whole weekend on mushrooms, so I'm still struggling with it to this very day.
But you've made some good headway. We've known each other a while, and you've committed yourself to changing the path as much as possible, and I know about that.
I mostly have my alcohol problem under control. I just don't drink, and occasionally I'll have 1 or 2, but I'm afraid to. You see, I'm afraid to get drunk, honestly, because I know I'm going to want to do it again.
That's why I choose not to drink. I never really had a drinking problem, but I know if I have 2-3 drinks, your mind starts wandering, and okay, maybe I do this. So,
well, I'm just the same way with coke. If there's a bottle of Jameson, I'm going to drink the bottle of Jameson. I'm going to just stay up until it's gone, or
Sure.
I pass out.
yeah.
Is it because you're Irish?
I love the casual racism for the Irish people on
Yeah.
the LiveFest.
Well,
Irish people don't drink it.
They drink Jameson. I'll tell you that. I got a guy in my office who I love to death. Who was we went to Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and that's his drink of choice, Jameson.
Oh, I love Jameson. Love Jameson.
Yeah,
Love it. Love it. But yeah,
call it what it is. It's a good drink.
yes. But I gotta not do this stuff anymore. I had this conversation the other day with someone who was very close to me, and they were like, July 1st was my 1-year sobriety from cocaine.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Leading up to that, the months before that was talking about a bender. I was on a 4-month bender.
Yeah.
I was putting coke on credit cards, man. It was bad. And it all culminated one day. I'm gonna shout out
Hold on. Are you doing cocaine on credit cards, or are you actually buying cocaine on credit cards?
The latter.
Paying for cocaine
On credit cards. So
yeah.
drug dealers now take credit cards.
Oh, Venmo. That's what Venmo was created for drug dealers, man. Venmo and Cash App. Listen to this board, man.
I've been out of the game for a little bit.
People pay their rent with it now, but it was started just so that dealers could sell drugs and nobody had to deal cash anymore.
Yeah.
That I don't know if that's true or not, but I'd like to think it is.
Or does the drug dealer tack on an extra 2% fee because it's American Express? Or
No, you
No,
pay,
I
you
know,
pay
I
the
know,
fee.
I know.
Yeah, you pay the fee and they get the whole thing. It's brilliant. And I will give one name here. A buddy of mine, Ian Gatewich, he has seen me through a lot of my struggles, and he was a server at Mudbugs where I play every Wednesday. And he would always laugh at me because, you know, my breaks, I would haul ass to the bathroom, you know, and I'd come back out like, you know, this whole nonsense. And, you know, he knew what I was doing in there.
Yeah.
And he's well versed and whatnot. And he knew what was happening. And anyway, July 1st, last year, it was a similar situation where I would buy, you know, like ounce.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what's the most amount of cocaine you went through, say, on a day or a bender?
I mean, you easily do an 8-ball a day.
Yeah, well, that's,
I don't think I've ever really paid attention to it.
Yeah.
Because I just buy big bags.
Sure.
You just don't know how long they last.
And what were you? Did you like to use cocaine with others, party, or did you isolate? Because for me, when it first started out, it was a party drug, but later on, I would isolate.
Mostly isolated.
Yeah.
Mostly isolated. Because I would be at home working from my home studio, where I'm home by myself all day. My wife gets home from work around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and at which point I'm usually gone playing. And that time leading up, I would just sit in my office and just all day long. You know, it's just stupid. Like there's no party involved. You know, it was like no party. I just was like so strung out on it, and so this particular day, you know, I would buy a big bag and then have a smaller bag of what I carried around with me because I don't have a huge bag of coke on me, you know, with my luck. And so I had my little baggie and I had a little tool that I kept in my wallet, a little spoon maybe, and you know, I would go to the bathroom and I was doing my thing. But this particular time again, I'm at the end of like 4 months of just non-stop all day every day, and so I was just like consuming a bunch in the bathroom, and I got to my second break and I had already depleted what I had brought, which was more than what's enough for the night. Like I was just going through it, and I was so upset that I cried, and I came out of the bathroom weeping. And Ian was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, dude." And he's like, "What's the matter?" I said, "Dude, I just ran out of coke in the bathroom." He's like, "You got a problem." And I was like, "I do." And
Was that about a year ago?
July 1st was the
A
one.
little over a year ago.
So
I
you
remember you telling me.
some change. But you know, so I was talking to somebody the other day about July 1st being my anniversary of sobriety day from coke anyway.
Right.
And she was like, would you ever do it again? And I was like, why would you even ask that question? Like, no, but like, you know, I might, you know what I mean? Like, I know me, you know, like I quit drinking in February and I didn't have a drop until like 6 weeks ago. And I haven't gotten drunk in that time, but I find myself drinking more. You know, whereas before, like I go to the Mexican restaurant, I have a margarita, cash out, I'm done. You know, and always with people so that there's some kind of accountability. I say and a lot. You guys are gonna have to do a lot of editing. I just did it again. Brilliant. Awesome.
Let me ask you this: Do you miss it?
Oh, every day.
So
Every day.
can I share from my personal experience? I remember it was like 3-4 years ago. I had like 5 months sober, 6 months. It was like 7 months. I remember my sister asked me, "Do you miss the using drugs?" I said, "Yeah, I do." She goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Why?" It was like the way it made me feel. Fast forward, and I relapsed, obviously, and now I'm about 20 months sober. And thank you. And I can honestly say, though, I don't miss it now.
That's all.
So I think till you get to the point where you've had enough, you're always going to have that urge. But I had to go through some other experiences and darkness to get to that point where I finally said it was enough. So, yeah, if there any way, you know, I can help you or any advice, please feel free to reach out because, you know, I've been through it all. But until you at that point to where you finally just had enough and sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know, I've gone through 12-step program and some other things. So again, just a recommendation from someone who's faced that.
That's good. I'm looking forward to when I'm at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of what I'm doing right now is focused on sobriety. I just had a new single come out. It was actually it was a single release party.
Yeah.
And it's called Smoke and Mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about trying.
You know,
to get sober.
that's interesting. Play on words, and you've always been talented with your creativity. But smoke and mirrors usually means other things. People don't initially think of that.
Yeah.
They think of, you know, look over here, I'm doing a magic trick over here when they think of smoke and mirrors.
Sure.
But to you, it's a different thing.
Yeah, and particularly in my writing and in my live show, especially during that time, everything's fueled by drugs and alcohol. So when people would say, "Man, you're really great," I would say it's just smoke and mirrors. And what I was saying was different from what they interpreted, just like you said. I was just trying to cheekily be like, "Oh, I'm high right now." That's the only reason you like it, because if I wasn't high, you wouldn't like me. And because I spent so long strung out that I thought that sober me is not desirable to people because everybody loves the persona of me. You know, a lot of people. That's what I love about what you guys are doing with this podcast. Is like a lot of people think they know me because they've seen me many times on stage or seen me many times at some kind of a function or doing an appearance or something. That's usually not me. I'm a wallflower. I don't like talking with people. I don't like socializing. I'm a homebody. I like staying at home and watching murder documentaries with my wife. You know what I mean? And but when I have to be out and be on, it was miserable for me, and so I self-medicated, you know, basically, so that I could get through those times. And so I felt like I didn't really have any value as a sober me, you know, because everybody loved or thought they loved
The stage left.
persona of me, yeah. And so I love what you guys are doing here, like giving people a chance to actually like get to know the people, like get to know like we're real people with real struggles, and you know, so it's raw and real, if you will.
Yeah.
But
And we appreciate you being open and honest with us.
yeah, I'm an open book. Thankfully, I hold very little taboo. You know, I'm pretty open about generally anything and everything because I believe in true authenticity. I believe that the cornerstone of relationship is honesty, integrity, and authenticity. You know, if I can't tell you what I'm struggling with, then you have no idea how to help me.
Right.
You know, you have no idea how to love me if I'm down. You know what I mean? So like, it's important to me to have like this authenticity. So I don't want to talk about it.
Do you think?
And I was going to say, you know, that a lot of the substance historically, and I'm sure it will carry on forward, but it fuels creativity in a lot of the artists' world. You know, I've been around musicians 40 plus years with some of the greatest musicians of all time, working security for them and other things, and some of the biggest comedians of all time. You know, Eddie Murphy, Rodney Dangerfield, Robin Williams, Bill Cosby, worked security for Paul. Yeah. And but when it came to the musicians, I think the thing for me was I was around all this stuff at a very young age. I started working security in bars and live music at age 17. I wasn't even old enough to be in the bars. I actually got the job because an older friend of mine was a big bodybuilder, wanted to take a night off to take his new girlfriend out on a date, and he couldn't find anybody to fill in for him. so he gives me the call and says, his name is Jerry Comparis. He's no longer with us. Why? Substance abuse, alcoholism. And he was a very dear friend of mine. We grew up together on Marco Island. And so it was a big incident that night. And, just fortunately, because of my skills at that time, I was a wrestler and I played some judo and had some boxing school. I was able to remedy the thing. But here I am, a 17-year-old kid fighting 35-year-old men, but the bottom line is for the next X amount of years, right, I was around a lot of big name musicians, and those names that I mentioned to you that have been some of the most successful people in the creative world. And I'm talking about, Robin Williams, I'm talking about Eddie Murphy. I have seen them do the same substances, not all the ones you mentioned, but some of the ones you've mentioned, right in front of me. And at a very young age, I saw also what happened in the nightclubs when there was too much, volume of consumption and what it could do. So I had like a little bit of the reverse where I had to be, the level-headed person in the room trying to keep, the order, in place. And so I watched, the effect of it. And it had a scared straight effect on me at a young age. And don't get me wrong, I've had some cocktails and quite a few at some certain times, but it always brought me back to those moments where I saw other folks that had real issues. And, I can tell you firsthand, sitting here, I spent about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours alone with Robin Williams. And Robin Williams, when you said to me, you went to the bathroom and you came back every 45 minutes or 30 minutes or so, him and I were alone in the green room in Gainesville at the Islands was the name of the club. Every 35 to 40 minutes, Robin Williams would leave the room, and we were drinking a bottle of wild turkey, him and I, but he'd leave the room and he'd come back, and sometimes he'd come back and he didn't even get all the powder off of his nose. And I would say, and here I am, a 19-20-year-old kid looking at Robin Williams at the top of his career saying, excuse me, Mr. Williams, but, you have some of this here. And, I'm sorry, but some of the most amazing, creative spirits, right, have had these exact same issues and struggles. So, for those that say, it only happens, it can happen to anybody, and it happens to some of the greatest people ever.
Yeah, doesn't discriminate.
No.
Yeah.
And my therapist, her name's Rebecca. I have two therapists. One named Rebecca was kind of like general life therapy, and I have an addiction and substance abuse therapist. Okay. I see both of them every week. But Rebecca would say that I'm uncomfortable with myself. And that's why I run substances, so I don't have to face the reality of whatever, I've been dealing with my whole life. A lot of childhood trauma. I'm not going to get into any of that, but a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of really messed up stuff. Moving around a lot, all that, it's hard being the new kid every single year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or just about every single year. Having to constantly make new friends and try to forge relationships with people, not knowing if I'm ever going to see them after a year. So I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I struggle with accepting in my life, that I have to feel not sober. And I find that a lot of people have that same thing going on. I've never met Robin Williams, but I could assume he probably had a similar situation where he was, obviously he was very depressed. Yeah. He couldn't deal with his feelings, and so he ran to other things.
Couldn't deal with life on life.
Yeah, and that's me.
But say this, someone like Robin, and I would put you in the same category because I've getting to know you for about 7 years now. One of the most, Robin Williams, and I put you in the similar category, one of the most creative minds I've ever met in my life. And I sat there in awe for those 3 hours I was alone with him. This was at University of Florida, that place, the islands, I was mentioning earlier. Sat there in awe in how fast his mind worked and the creativity, and he would shift from personality to personality just to keep me entertained. But a lot of the things that you just said, like, lit up a light bulb in my mind, because when you said it wasn't who I really was, I'm not really who I am when I'm on the drugs. It takes me to a different place. It modifies my personality and what I'm portraying, or the image I'm giving off to some degree to the audience or whoever I'm engaged in conversation with. And that's how it was with him, I believe. And I think that he was a different person probably when he was not on the substances. So, you know, it's being ultra creative and ultra intelligent and on a certain spectrum, you know, a certain level, I think has its blessings and its curses.
Yes.
And not everybody's on that level.
Yeah.
And I personally think, from my experiences with these different artists that have been around, and many of them who've had addiction issues, is that the folks that are on that level are more susceptible to addiction than the folks who aren't on that creative or intellectual level. That's my personal opinion, but that's what I've seen. So you want to read between the lines. It's a subtle compliment through my 40 years of experience of being around entertainers, because you're at a different level. You know, and my view on just people in general is, you know, where someone has strengths, in other areas they have weaknesses. And where others have weaknesses, others have strengths. So are we all equal? To some degree, absolutely, we're all equal. But some strengths are so, you know, like runaway train, crazy good, or beneficial, or powerful, that they're more obvious than some other people's more subtle strengths.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do you think you perform better sober or on the substance?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
If you ask me while I'm on drugs, I would tell you it's while I'm on drugs.
Right.
If you ask me while I'm sober, I would probably say sober. But, you know, I also, again, have decades of people seeing me trashed playing and going, dude, you're amazing. You know what I mean? And so, like, I always felt like, well, maybe I actually am good while I'm trashed.
Well, you slip into a different environment when you're under the influence.
For sure.
And that environment takes you to a different level while you're performing. You feel different when you're performing when you're at that level versus completely sober. Have you performed in music or the arts?
No, I mean work related, but I know when I masked my drug use for a long time, managing restaurants, and I was, you know, recognized as top manager in the state, stuff like that. But little did people know I was using a substance to get by. Now, did I think that this would make me better manager? No, but the reason why I asked that, because Motley Crue, I remember, said when they got sober, they felt like they actually played better when they got sober.
Well, the sound, this is that. Well, yeah, I think, and it depends, right? There's a breaking point, and I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a breaking point where it goes from elevated experience for you. So if you're completely sober, that's, you know, when you're performing well and your mind is engaged at the same time, 100% engaged. And then there's a median, like a middle point, right? Where the influence makes you feel good, but doesn't make you start, for example, slurring or potentially missing words, forgetting lines, or you miss a note, you start getting sloppy at a certain point. So there is like this happy medium, but it's a window, a small window where it's the best of both worlds, I think. You know, my experience has only been from, having some cocktails. Where as a performer, you know, that a couple of cocktails. So, but I know that it goes downhill fast, you know, and then people in the audience can tell.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, speak to that. Like, if you think I'm off base on that, but I think that's what I've seen.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. And, you know, I think for me, I definitely write better sober.
Interesting.
Which is, yeah, my last 2 records, I wasn't sober. And in fact, I have a song on my first record. It's called "If I Wanted to Be Sober, I Wouldn't Have Got High."
Yeah.
And it's all about. It's my mom was like, "Dude, you got to clean up." And my dad was like, "Dude, you got." My dad's an alcoholic. You know what I mean? So when he's telling me like, "Dude, you got to clean up," yeah, sorry, Dad, for calling me an alcoholic. But I had everyone in my life going, "Dude, you got to clean up." My therapist was like, "You got to go to rehab," you know, and my response was, you know, like, if I wanted to be sober, I would have got high. So that's why I'm high right now, because I don't want to be sober.
Yeah.
I have a record that's coming out next year called White Trash Royalty, and it's the first record I wrote sober, and well, mostly sober.
Are we gonna hear a little of that today?
I don't have the mixed versions of them.
No, on acoustic. When you gonna do a little performance for us. I know you got a couple songs in mind.
No, I can't until they're released. But
you got some other stuff you're gonna share.
yeah, so I'm gonna play a song called "Mighty Fine" I wrote for my dad after he was diagnosed with cancer, and then "Smoke and Mirrors," which is my new single, which is about sobriety. It's about trying to find sobriety. So it's like I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get there, and that's what this whole song is about. It's making efforts towards sobriety. A lot of my big heroes, you know, are sobering up, and one of my biggest heroes on the planet is a guy Clint Lowry. I think he's here in Naples right now. Actually, he's a guitar player for a band called Seven Dust, and I remember being in high school, leaving school, skipping school, or leaving early on a Friday and driving to Atlanta to go see Seven Dust play at some club. You know, this is years ago. They hadn't really gotten big yet.
Yeah.
And I've been following these guys forever. And Clint was in a bad place. He was real bad. I mean, rock star, you know, like
Sure.
the whole thing. And watching him get sober really has been paramount for me. Oh man, if he can do it, like I have no excuse, because he not to say someone's worse than other, like everybody struggles with it. Everybody has the same degree of struggles, whatever it is. We all have the same amount of struggle. But it was still like, man, he you know, Aaron and stuff, like, you know, if you can kick that, like, you know, how come I can't stop drinking? You know what I mean? And so he's been very paramount in me wanting to be sober. But I have my 4th record, which we'll start to record next summer. That was written mostly out of sobriety, not even drinking, barely smoking any weed, which is, you know, I started smoking weed when I was like 13, and that was just a daily part of my life for the rest of my life. Part of why I moved to Colorado years back was to go work in the weed industry. I was involved in some things here that were nefarious, and things got a little too hot, and I was like, I should leave town. And I did, and I was like, let me move to a place where this is legal, and, you know, kind of do this the right way. Which, again, looking back, was just like slim little thumb thing. You know, I was so proud when I got my drug dealer license from the state of Colorado. I sent it to my mom, and I was like, "You think the boy's a legal drug dealer now?" Once I got my badge to sell weed, and but like
What was her response to that?
my mom, when we were younger, my mom wouldn't even let us watch The Simpsons. Like, she thought it was the devil, you know what I mean? And it's so funny watching my mom soften up over the years. Things that she was pissed about when we were younger, she kind of saw the reality of things as we got older. And of course, as my siblings and I helped my parents push the envelope a little bit more, my dad was able to kind of live more of his life, when they got together, and my dad smoked weed, and by the end of his life, I shouldn't say this either, but she was buying the weed for him, you know what I mean? And of course he had cancer and that's something like that. But
Look at this picture behind you.
oh yeah, that's my pops right there. So
What does that make you think that was your brother too?
that's my brother. Yeah, my brother died in, gosh, it would have been 2018, I think. And that was just devastating to everybody because it wasn't. He was sick, but not like deathly sick, but he's actually getting sick.
When we first met, we were still talking a lot about that.
Yeah, it was.
If you remember those
It
conversations.
really, because he went through a lot of the same traumas that I went through. That my friends and my other siblings didn't go through. And there's stuff that happened that like my parents have never heard. Like I have secrets that if my mom found out, like she would be heartbroken. You know what I mean? Like there's things I've never been said. There's things my wife doesn't even know because it's just such a deep, dirty secret that I keep it buried in me. And so, but he knew all of those. He knew all the deep, dirty secrets. He knew all the things I was involved in. He got me involved in a lot of the things. He sobered up. When he died, he was straight edge. Like I don't think he was a caffeine. Like he did not.
What happened to your brother?
He essentially he was always sick. He was always in the hospital. He's just a real sickly dude. A terrible immune system, and that particular year was the year that the flu was particularly deadly, and he'd gotten that flu and pneumonia in both lungs at the same time, and it was just too much on his body, and his heart gave out, and nobody really saw it coming. So it was devastating, and like for me, we were 11 months apart. We looked very similar to each other. Most people couldn't tell us apart, particularly when we were younger.
I love that picture, by the way. Three of you with the beard.
That's from Bishop's wedding, and that's one of the only pictures of my brother and my dad and me. That's one of my favorite pictures.
Oh yeah.
It's the three amigos there.
Yeah.
We the three of us were hell for my mom. I don't know if I should tell this story. I might tell this story. My mom would kill me. But when he died, it crushed me, man. It crushed me. And I thought, well, at least nobody's gonna die for another little while. And my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer, and just went down so hard, so fast. But the dude refused to die. I've never seen that much resilience in anybody, and he just kept going. And he was walking dead for like 2 years. When they diagnosed him, they were like, "You have months," and he made it like almost 2 years after that, something like that. Yeah, and until he was, I had to be the one to kind of make that decision. The last day of his life, he was in the hospital, and I was with my mom. My sister's wedding was that night. So, like, my dad's in the hospital, we're all at her wedding, and then wedding's over, and we're running to get to the hospital to go back to be with my dad. And I went up and had a cigarette with my aunt, Karen, and I came back in to the hospital room or the emergency room, wherever. It was all a blur. But I went in there and my mom and my dad and the doctor were sitting there and they were like, "We're waiting for you to get back." They were like, "Basically, you need to decide if he needs to go to hospice tonight." And I was like, "Why me?" You know what I mean? And I had to look my dad in the eye and say, "This is it, man. This is it," you know, and crushing things to do. Because this dude, you know, you'll hear it in the song that I play when he's fine. Like, the dude was larger than life, you know. He wasn't really. He was really a humble, simple man. But like growing up, I just thought he was Superman. You know what I mean? And to see him wither away like that was just awful, awful.
Well, life is not easy. No, I just had actually a very good friend of mine up in Michigan calling out Friday, and was telling me about his brother who runs the food bank for a religious group, and sent me this, form that if I wanted to go ahead and make a donation. And you guys know I try to do a lot for charity. So I get this form and a text. I read the whole thing, the whole story about it, his brother, and I went ahead and made a donation. The next day, he was telling me that his brother was concerned that there was more and more people coming to the food bank, and they didn't have enough money, right, to feed all the people that were coming, because there's more and more people, more than their normal budget. So he said, "Brother, I'll try to help and get some people." And so he sent the picture of the receipt that I sent him, which I sent within 3 minutes. 6 hours later, his brother died of a heart attack.
Oh.
His brother was 12 years old, very, very close. But I mean, you never know. That's just it. So every day is a gift. You never know what's going to happen. Speaking of gifts, tell me about your lovely bride.
Oh, best gift I ever got in my whole life, man. She is, I don't even know where to start. She is the greatest human that I have ever met. And I've met a lot of people. But like, she exudes it. I remember the very first time that I saw her, I met her at church, a church I worked at. And I was in the hospital at Super Bowl Sunday. I was at my parents' house. Was really out of it. Apparently, I don't remember any of this. Apparently, took a shower for like 2 hours, and they were like banging on the door, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And apparently, I was responding. And I was saying, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just take a shower. I'm fine though." Apparently, I was responding to them, and I came out, and they said I was standing by the fridge, and my eyes rolled back in my head, and I just started to go down. And my dad caught me, and my brother and my dad took me to the hospital, and I ended up getting admitted with diabetic ketoacidosis, and literally almost died that night. And they basically spent the whole time saying, like, "You're going to die in the hospital. Just be prepared." I was like, "Well, really?"
Yeah, how do you prepare?
Yeah, it's like,
I'll just take a long shower.
Yeah, right. I really don't want to die, so I think I'll just keep living. And so I had just got out of that, so I wasn't working my regular job anymore, and so I had some free time, and I had this guy who's the youth pastor at the church. His name was Todd, and there was just something one day. I was like, I don't know why, but this guy needs my help. I don't know why. I don't know what it's about, but he needs my help. I didn't really know the guy. And so I came up to him and said, "Hey, man, I think I'm supposed to help you." And he's like, "Come to my office this week." So I came to his office, and he said, "You gotta know, like, I've been really struggling here." And he pulled out his resignation. He said, "I wrote this resignation a few weeks ago, and basically prayed and said, God, if you want me to stay, like, you got 2 weeks to make something happen." And 2 weeks later, I showed up, and I was like, "I'm supposed to help you." And we were able to grow this youth group by leaps and bounds. And it was like we did a lot of great stuff together. But the very first day that I went out to that youth group, it was a very small youth group at the time, just a handful of people. But Todd's like going around the room, and he's like telling me who all the adult leaders are, and Laura was one of them, and he just totally skipped right over her. Now, the gravity of that is the second I saw Laura, I knew instantly I was going to marry her.
Wow.
But then he skipped over her, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a pedophile. This kid's like a high schooler. You know what I mean? And I was like, this is bad news, you know? And so I was like, who is this girl? You know, the 6-foot girl. And what grade is she in that I feel so terrible right now? And he's like, oh, her name's Laura. I was like, how old is she? He was like, well, she's 24 or 26 or whatever old she was. I was like, oh, thank you. All right. And I looked at him and said, I'm going to marry her. And he laughed so hard because he knew she was so out of my league.
Why don't you look over your shoulder?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Isn't she hot, dude?
You all like her covered on that.
Dude, big time.
She's beautiful and she's elegant.
Yeah, she is. And super classy.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't cuss. She's never held a cigarette, much less smoked one or anything, or she's never done any drugs. She's never been drunk before. You know, she's like super wholesome. And then there's me. This is this alien.
Is that what they call a match made in heaven?
I think so.
Or is that opposites attract? To what do you want to
Well,
call
I will tell
that?
you
'Cause
this. For about 6 months, that night I tried to talk. I had a bright blue mohawk. I had piercing all over my face. You know, I was dressing like a metalhead at the time. And she did not like it one bit. And I tried to talk to her for about 6 months. She wouldn't give me the time of day. Literally. If I were to ask her what time it is, she'd be like, go 5 o'clock. Like, she did not like me at all. And she had friends that really wanted to meet me and knew she had access to me. And so she hit me up and she said, hey, my friend will meet you and after you're out playing this weekend, can I introduce you guys? And I said, yeah, of course, absolutely. And we sat there together, the 4 of us, and talked for like 3 hours. And that was the first time Laura actually gave me a chance to, like, again, she only knew the persona, you know. And again, I love this because you're giving people a chance to pull the curtain back and see the real person. And that happened. That moment happened where she was able to see that I'm more than just the persona, and that I'm deeper than just the persona. And she actually, you know, we had a great conversation. And 7 days later, I asked her to marry me. That was 20 years ago.
Ellen, did she say yes right away?
Yeah.
That is such a great story.
Yeah.
So awesome.
We stayed up on the phone until like 6 in the morning, and you know, I laid it all out, you know, and it's just like, you know, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. You know what I mean? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, holy shit, are you for real? Like, this is crazy. Are you stupid? This is dumb. Don't get involved with me. I'm gonna ruin your credit score. Yeah, September 15th was our 18th wedding anniversary. We're together for 20 years.
The last time I saw you play live, she was there.
She never comes to my gigs.
Well, I think you need to qualify that, my friend. I think last year you played about 260 gigs?
Something like that, you know.
So when you're out and about performing, you're doing, what, 4 or 5 a week?
Yeah, five, 6 a week.
Yeah, so, 260 live shows in a year is a lot.
But to me, that's like 260 opportunities for her to come and watch me play. You know what I mean? I want her at all my gigs. I want her every time I always want to be around her. Like, she is my favorite human, my favorite person. She is the kindest, most thoughtful, most caring, most generous. I just did an interview for Old Journey magazine in Miami, and I said in there, you know, I don't necessarily believe in the concept of a Christ or a Messiah, but I do believe that people can be Christ-like, and she is the most Christ-like person that I've ever met. You know, she's just willing to give everything to those who need it. Her integrity is unmatched, and I can say full confidence I would not be alive today without her in my life. Absolutely would not be alive.
What year again was it that you were married?
I knew you were gonna ask that. Well, if you asked the other day, I would have told you it was 2003.
Until you asked her.
Until I asked her, and she was like, "We were married in 2007." And I was like, "I was way off." She was like, "Yeah, I didn't even know you in 2003." It was touche. But yeah, 2007 we got married, so it was 2000, like 2005 when we got together.
Let's fast forward to 2019. You moved back to Southwest Florida. What city?
Back to, well, I was in Naples for a couple months, and then Bonita, which is when I first moved to Southwest Florida back in 2003. It was to Bonita, and so Bonita was kind of my home. I had, toured the country playing in rock bands, and most prominently with a band called Fellow Lewis with Sheen Brooke. You guys probably know who she is. We played in a trio together with my brother Bishop, called Jitsu Native. And we kind of had like a weird falling out. To this day, I don't really know exactly what happened, but we had such weird stuff, and I decided I was going to quit music. It was just like, I'm done. Like, it's too much drama. It breaks my heart. Every time I turn around, music breaks my heart. There's a song in there somewhere, so we write this down. I was like, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go do something else. And so I moved to Colorado, and I worked at an alpaca ranch, and shoveling shit all day for real in the snow. It was crazy, and I just would not play, and started to go crazy. Started to go real crazy out there, and I got some mental health diagnosis, and that explained a lot. And my therapist was like, "You got to get back to playing music." But where I was in Colorado, there was no music scene at all. Like, where I was in Colorado Springs, and in Colorado Springs, there's basically three people. There's career military.
Right.
You're talking about generals and stuff, and they don't go out to bars. They certainly don't go out at night to listen to some cover band. You have a huge evangelical Christian presence, focus on the families there, executive publishing is there, mega churches out there, and then stoners who don't care. They're just like, they're just blasted. They're just doing their own thing, and so it was hard to find anywhere to play even, which is, I was so used to being here where my name has value. You know what I mean? I've been playing in this town for a long time. I'm highly recognizable, highly noticeable. When you see me one time, when you see me the second time that you've seen me before. You know what I mean? And up there, like, my name meant nothing, and so.
What does that picture mean to you?
Oh man! Oh dude!
Talk about that posse.
If I ever see an alpaca again, it'll be too soon, man.
That was Colorado, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in Colorado. Yeah, I forget the city that the actual ranch was in. It was about a 40-minute drive from where we were living. And I was there every day, taking care of. There was a couple hundred head of alpaca. There was horses, donkeys, chickens, goats. All kinds of nonsense out there. That's how much I hated my music life and how much I wanted to get away from it. Was like, I'm just gonna go lock myself in with a bunch of alpaca and shovel shit for hours, and that's exactly what I did. And now on this side,
that like, to me, just is such a classic Slim.
that's right.
I'm gonna go lock myself in with a pack of alpaca.
How did a job like that pay?
Oh, nothing. It was not much, man. I don't even remember how much I got paid. It wasn't much. It wasn't enough for
Right.
sure. And the lady who owned the ranch would get so upset with me because the payment was for the job regardless of how long it takes. And I'm a big strapping lad. The other ranch hands, they couldn't fill a full wheelbarrow, so I could fill a wheelbarrow up, mounding, and then you have to run it up this hill and throw it over the side of the cliff. really gross stuff. It's a whole cliff mountain made out of alpaca shit. It's crazy. You know, so I would get the job done so fast. And she would get upset with me and try to pay me less or make me do more work. And I'd be like, no, this is not what we agreed on. She's like, yeah, but it only took you 3 hours. I'm like, yeah, because I'm good at my job. You know what I mean?
Efficiency.
Yeah. So I don't even remember what it paid, but it was something ridiculous. But it got me through, you know, until I figured out what I was going to do up there. But
Did you ever have any like evaluations or diagnosis of why you went away from music, why you came back?
Yeah,
what was going on
so-
in your head, you know.
while I was up there, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder, schizoaffective disorder, which is kind of like schizophrenia, except it's not all the time. I have bouts of schizophrenia, basically, and obsessive compulsive disorder, which like made so much of my life make so much more sense because you know I didn't understand why I did a lot of the things I do, especially with the OCD.
Yeah.
You know, like I had a lot of routines and rituals that like you know were detrimental to my life if they weren't the way I needed them to be. So it explained a lot and got on medication, started in therapy, you know, which I'd never really been in therapy before, never really been under psychiatric treatment like that before. And
So this is different because, you know, before you're working on addiction, now you're working on mental health, and then you came back to music. I know you came back because I watched you perform. Was that part of the mental health recovery program to get back to music? Was that recommended to you, or did you come to that conclusion on your own?
yeah, it was my therapist. You know, she every time we'd have a session, she just go, "All you talk about is music." She's like, "You clearly
It's in your blood.
Yeah, she was like, "Clearly, this is your outlet. Why aren't you playing music?" And I was like, "Music doesn't love me. And if it doesn't love me, I don't want anything to do with it." You know what I mean? And you know, she kind of really helped me see that.
But it does.
Yeah, what it was is so if you're not unfamiliar with bipolar disorder, you have bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 is basically lives in a depressive state, but they never go manic. A bipolar 1 usually stays in a manic state and occasionally will dip down to depressed. And so I had been running in a manic state for so long, mostly because of cocaine and things like that, that I was constantly up. And so I was very productive. I got, you know, I was very focused. I got a lot done, you know, because I was in this manic episode and not knowing it. And when there was the fallout, you know, of Gypsy Native, I swung depressive for the first time in my life. I've never been depressed before, clinically depressed. Been sad before, obviously. Everybody's been sad or has moments of depression, but like clinical depression, I had never experienced before. And that was, you know, again, I couldn't imagine going to work with a real job because I was so depressed. And I didn't know I was depressed. Like I couldn't vocalize what I was feeling. I just knew I felt terrible and wanted to hang out with them half all day because they weren't humans. I didn't want anything to do with humans, you know what I mean? And but yeah, she was like, you know, you got to get back into music. And like I was saying earlier, I couldn't find a place to play, so it was like come back to where I had a huge network of people, where my name had value, you know.
You have a following, a local following, and it's not just here; it's around the state, and other places around the country.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Well, I personally have been around a lot of performers, and my sense is it's going to be that way. And
Thank you.
I mean that sincerely. So we're circa 2019. You're getting back into music. You're coming back where you have a name in Southwest Florida.
Yeah.
Take us through like that little transition, and then that's about the time when we met. there's another side of you that I know real well, and that's your creative side when it comes to graphics and other things, production, video production, filming, audio. So there's a lot more to Slim Gillian. Even though we're hearing a lot, I'm telling you, there's a lot more to this gentleman.
I even might have designed a certain logo.
And this is what I mean by creativity. So I was introduced to Slim by a mutual friend of ours, Mike Davis, and I said, I'm going to launch this music festival here in Southwest Florida, and I want it to be, a larger music festival, and it's turned out to be just that. But in starting it, it's called LiveFest.
Yeah.
As you know, it's held in the middle of a PGA, LPGA event. It's called the Grant Thornton Invitational. But year one was still QBE, and it was run by, and it was actually, started out even prior to that, Fidelity Investments, and it was Greg Norman, the pro golfer. He's a namesake. He's the creator of the event. It goes back 30 some odd years, right? So we did this bolt-on music festival, which ended up becoming the largest live music festival in all of Southwest Florida by far.
It's insane. Every time I see pictures and videos, I'm like, this is. There's nothing else like that here. Nothing. I'm really close.
Huh?
Yeah, so we're blessed, to have that, and it's been a vehicle that allows us to provide, some donations to charities and so forth. But back to the creative side, the other side of Slim is, so I call up Slim, we introduce ourselves, and there was a little bit of a fun click on the phone, hadn't met in person, a little fun click on the phone. I described to him what I want to do. And usually there's a lot of back and forth, right? A lot of, give me your concept. I said, I want you to design a logo for this music festival. And I want it to be somewhat Southwest Florida, somewhat tropical, but a strong logo, an edgy logo. Okay, not one, that's foo-foo. And it's got some heart and soul in it. So I that's basically what we said. And he said, yeah, let me give that a little time, maybe a day or two. Within 2 days, he sends it back to me, and it was spot on, like what I was hoping for, what I wanted, but I couldn't put it on, to paper, pencil, color, and bring it to life. And he did it immediately, like within a day or two. And so, today, if you look at the LiveFest logo, which is, behind me, that's the logo that Slim designed.
Amazing.
And then, of course, you got a lot of other things for us, a lot of other stuff he's put together, all kinds of these, piecemeal, videos of us, that we've done. He's taken, from a dozen different creators and put them into one, like almost full feature film. And he's so talented. And I'm so grateful for those things. And then we're getting ready, 7 years later after LiveFest starts, we're getting ready to do the LiveFest Club, which is this podcast here, real and raw.
Yeah.
And I call up Slim and I said, Slim, I got this concept, we want to do it. Here's the idea. I don't want too much of a deviation, but I want it to be edgy. Can you give me a logo?
I'm just very good too,
Yeah, so if you look behind you, another
That was
original.
easy.
The original. Yeah.
What was funny was I sent like a mock-up to Steve, and he was like, "That's perfect," and I was like, "Oh, this ain't even done yet, man." I was like, "Give me a couple more days." That was just a mock-up to see if you like the vibe of it. But that was the easiest logo ever made. It took me about 4 minutes to make.
Yeah.
Because half the work was already done. I just wrote the word club, and that was it. So don't be too impressed by that one.
Yeah, but it's and two, you have a very big heart, a very generous person, and you know what I mean by that, what the things you've done for us and for the brand, and so I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
So that's the other great side. He's super creative on other fronts. Let's talk a little bit about your vision for the future, what you've got going on with your new album, Of course, we're gonna get to live performances here shortly, which I'm super excited about. I know I've heard one of the songs. I believe I've heard both of them in a live performance, and they're awesome. So really excited for you guys to hear them and for the audience to hear them. So please stay tuned for that. But bigger picture, is there anything in the works that you want to share with us that may become a reality? We've had some discussion. Maybe you want to share that. And again, there's a lot of, work to be done, a lot of questions to be answered, and so forth. But I know you've got a vision that may be in the works that I think is a good story.
Yeah, I have a really good filmmaker buddy of mine, Chris Foster. I first met him, I was hired as a production assistant on his first feature film. And that's how I met him, and we just instantly hit it off and have been great friends ever since. And he was in town from LA last week, and he came over to my house and we had lunch, and we were just talking about, all our struggles and filmmaking stuff, and I was talking about my career. I just signed with NBK Artist Management, NBK Media Group.
Awesome.
They're-
Congratulations.
Thank you. They're in Orlando, Nashville, and London, and the two big pieces that I was looking for was management and booking. I needed a booking agent bad, or a few of them, and so I got the manager, and their first priority is finding a booking agent. So my manager's name is Brian Ballin, so he's aggressively working on that right now. And I'm telling Chris all this. I'm like, I got my third record's about to drop. I just got the budget for my fourth record. We're gonna start working on that in summer 2026. I've got all the stuff dialed in. I'm starting to play the Rebellion original stuff, because when people hear I play 260, 280 gigs a year, they're not shows. You know what I mean? Some of them are shows, but it's mostly cover gigs at bars and restaurants, which is fine. It pays the bills, but if you can only sing Tennessee Whiskey so many times, I've been singing it since it was David Allan Coe song. You know what I mean? And I sang it through the 80s, sang it through the 90s, I sang it all through the 2000s, and then Stapleton came out with his version, and it brought new life. And it's another one. If I ever sing Tennessee Whiskey again, it's too great song. I love it, but I'm just so sick of singing it. But you kind of have like the gigs and the shows, and taking the step out from the cover stuff to play my original music under SlimTronic5k and Rebellion. So I'm getting more shows with that. Sugar Shack's wanting to give me a couple times a year. We're going to get doing stuff with like Artis and City Burn and things like that. So more shows on the horizon. And of course, once a booking agent gets involved, they're aggressively going to be booking the band. They're trying to do a Florida tour and then a Southern U.S. tour. So I'm telling him, I got all this stuff going on, but like I am not road ready whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like
What do you mean by that, road ready?
So
It's not easy to go on the road. You got to be at a certain physicality, mental state.
all of the above.
Okay, tell me more.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. I can't go on the road for 6 months right now. Like I just couldn't do it. Biggest what's just physical health. I left high school at 350 pounds. At 17 years old. At my heaviest, I was 700 pounds. Went from 700 down to 380, and then I had all of my life blow up and moved to Colorado and started gaining. It was doing well until COVID hit, and then that just destroyed my life. And so I gained so much back, and so physically, I can't make it through a whole show. You know what I mean? Like I played that show at Sugar Shack. I was dead by the time I was done. It took me so long to load out, because I was just like moving so slow, and I was like, I can't do this every night.
there's a couple of sides that I think just the audience should know. One is, what you're talking about. Maybe being in better condition, better shape, all that. But you do pour your heart and soul into your shows.
Yeah.
And when you perform, that's obvious, and that takes a lot of energy. And a lot of people don't realize when you're up there for, depending on the gig, you're up there at least an hour to 3 hours. At least usually it's 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. You're the lead singer, the front man, which you are. You're doing most of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the hot lights on you. You've got the energy, hype, and then you've got to come down after the show, even if you're just the natural high of performing, and the pressure and the anxiety and the audience and the engagement. It's a lot of work.
It is. It is. It's no joke to be an entertainer. And that's just on my level. I mean, when you take somebody like Taylor Swift, you know what I mean, or like who have these huge productions, like it takes NFL level conditioning to be able to put on a show like that.
To your point, Mick Jagger has said multiple times that he would run as much as 5 miles during the show, back and forth.
I don't believe it.
During 3 hours, it's really, if you start breaking it down, a 3-hour show, right? And he's just running back and forth, 5 miles if you're running at a 10-minute pace is 50 minutes, right? Well, take that, so that's less than an hour. Do that, 3 hours. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Start me up.
Yeah, there you go. So back to, you're talking to the filmmakers, you're talking to your friend, you're talking about what you're getting ready to do. You're looking to cut records, you're looking to tour, you're talking about road ready. What's the filmmaker thinking?
Yeah, so it came from, his ideas come from, in February, I was 590 pounds, and I've lost since then. I got down to 500, then put 20 back on. Excuse me. And so I'm sitting about 520 right now. And so I said, this next year, I need to spend the year getting ready to go on the road because I want to be on tour in 2027, touring the new record, because that's when my 4th record will come out in 2027. And so I'm gonna go out and tour that record. And so I'm not ready. So I'm gonna spend the next year trying to achieve full sobriety. I want to try to cut my weight significantly. Maybe not quite half, but close to half. If I, like I said, at 380 is the smallest I've been as an adult. And that was, I used to fight. That was my fighting weight. It was 380. I fought super heavyweight. It was so hard to find people to fight because nobody's that heavy, so I'm like, I want to cut my weight like almost in half, find sobriety.
Take a pause for a second. Put it on pause. I gotta go rush.
Oh yeah, no worries.
What do we get called? Because I'm drinking.
I want to hear about the MMA, and then we're. So, let's talk about MMA. I mean, here you are saying size matters, for lack of better terms, right? Tell me about that. Obviously, you got some physicality. I believe you also played some sports, football, and some other things. MMA is a whole different level of cardio.
It's a thing, yes. And I, speaking of cardio, so I trained with Crafton Wallace from the UFC, and Crafton.
Great friend of mine was on our 239 live show last night, and we did an event with him over the weekend.
Last night was on?
It was on.
What are the odds that I'm talking about it today?
Shout him out. Give him a
Yeah,
shout.
I will. Crafton Wallace.
He'll see this absolutely, and I actually was able to. I had Tito Ortiz on last night in the 239 live,
Oh, nice.
and he really wanted to meet Tito because he hit Crafton's last UFC fight was on a Tito Ortiz main event card.
Oh, nice.
So I got to bring them together
That's cool.
last night, which was really
That's really cool.
That's
But Crafton Wallace. I don't know if Steve, if you're familiar with Crafton Wallace, but he is a Naples, Southwest Florida legend.
Yeah.
Like he is a.
The dude is, yeah, he's fierce. He is something else. But kind, super kind.
Extremely humble, extremely kind.
Sweetheart of a dude.
But do not.
But he could kill you.
Don't go on the octagon.
Yeah, and he's former military as well,
Yeah.
you know. So I mean,
He
he's
is-
like literally trained to kill.
And he didn't start MMA training until he was 26. He got out of the military. That late start. If he started earlier on his career, I think he could have been one of the UFC greats.
Yeah, I agree. But I trained under him and Bryce Lawrence, who at the time was the ISP multi-world champion, who was Crafton's protege.
Yeah.
Outside of his kids, obviously.
Circa, when are we?
And
Because I know you're so good with years.
yeah, right. So it'd have been like 2015, maybe about 10 years ago.
Okay.
Awesome. And the guy I trained the most with was Anthony Hargrove from the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Remember that name?
Port Charlotte. maybe.
Yep, he's from down here. Yeah, but he played for the Saints.
What heavyweight? What
I thought super heavyweight.
super? What were you weighing in at?
380.
380.
So you got trained by Crafton, basically. Yeah.
So 380 10
I've
years
been
ago.
knocked out many times by Crafton Wallace.
So you know what that tells me is that you obviously have the mental ability and capability to get to the levels you want to get and control that if you focus on it.
For sure. And that's where, I got back into drugs and alcohol again. When I was fighting, I smoked weed, but they don't really care about weed. I didn't do any performance enhancing drugs or anything. And so, as I moved back and I got back into drugs and alcohol again, and I just let it, kind of ruin my life again. But now I'm at this like moment where I'm like, all right, something's got to change. And I was telling, my buddy Chris, who ended up going, are you filming this? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, dude, we film you dropping weight, getting sober, recording a new album, and the whole process of that, like you literally getting road ready. He was like, that's $1 million documentary. And I was like, well, I wouldn't want $1 million. And
Yeah, all the conditioning, everything. It's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and so we're in talks with that right now. Talking to some executive producers and such. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition or not. Regardless, I'm still going to go on that journey. Whether it gets documented or not is I don't really care.
Yeah.
It would be fun to do as an art project with one of my best friends.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like I'm still going to do it either way. So like that's my whole next year, which has started, this week. I'm not waiting until January, like
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we spoke the other day, like I'm gonna start in January, and part of me was like,
Yeah,
what's wrong with today, baby?
yeah, I think that was Sunday that I said that. And
Yeah.
By what day is today? Tuesday.
Yeah.
So yesterday I meal prepped for the week, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna actually do it this week, and
You get a head start, right?
yeah, I was like, why am I waiting until January? Especially if the doc doesn't get made. Then I've just wasted 3 months. That I could've been, So that's my goal.
Well, let me ask you a question. So you do the documentary, it's about getting road ready. It's also obviously they're going to be capturing you recording new music, new albums. They're going to be capturing you touring. Okay, they're going to be capturing you getting into the condition you want to be in. Do you see a crescendo to the documentary, like a final, exclamation point moment that would make it special for you?
The big thing is seeing me on a stage, at the weight that I want to be at, or at least close to it. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna admonish myself if I don't hit a goal. You know what I mean? Like that's part of my problem in the past is when I miss a goal, I self-sabotage more. So like the whole kind of climax of the film would be, you know, looking out at the crowd, you know, playing a show. Like I mean, you came out to my Sugar Shack show. Since COVID, I can't stand up anymore. I can't stand up and walk.
What kind of a show? What kind of crowd? And what's ideal for you? Are you talking like a major festival? You're talking like 15, 20,000 type big major show?
Like LiveFest major.
Like LiveFest. So this is the announcement that I'm actually the headliner.
But you know what though? Speaking of that, this is probably a really good time to let the audience know that in the next few seconds, we're going to see you perform live right here, perform some of your original songs. Super excited about that for everybody to see. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Slim Gillian of SlimTronic5k and the Rebellion.
This song's called Smoke and Mirrors, and it's about my lifelong struggle with substance abuse and addiction, and more specifically about how I want to be sober, and that's what I'm working towards. One of the hardest songs I ever wrote, but probably one of the most important songs I'll ever write. It goes like this. I wake up with sunrise, but the shadows stay in a room full of echoes. I lose my way. I try to walk a straight line, but the road keeps on bending. When I step through my own eyes, I see the world that's ending. I know I swore at least 1,000 times, but I stumbled through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every line I told is leading me on. Fumble through the sickness, thrill with the quickness. Every line I told is leading me on. The more that I punish myself, the more the pain appears. Yeah, my heaven and hell is just smoke and mirrors. It's just smoke and mirrors. Days, late at night, I'm losing track. Every step I take forward, I put 2 steps back. Reach for my salvation, but life's hands almighty cold. In the darkness of my soul, worn out, it's getting old. With the whispers of temptation, they keep dragging me down. So I stumble through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every lie I told is getting me on. Fumble through the sickness, it's real with the witness. And I go and leave me on. Every more that I punish myself, the more the pain appears. Every head, my heaven and hell, is just smoke and mirrors. It's just smoke and mirrors. So I stumble through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every line I'm told is a little more wrong. Look through the sky. I totally just dropped the words there. I suck. Is there any way we could do that again now that I've completely butchered it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just pick up where you.
I'll wake up with the sunrise, with the shadows stay in a room full of echoes. I lose my way. I try to walk a straight line, but the road keeps on bending. When I stare into my own eyes, I see the world that's ending. I know I'm small, at least 1,000 times. Oh, I stumble through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every line told is leading me on. Fumbles through the sickness, gets rid of the sickness. Everywhere I turn is a little more wrong. And the more that I punish myself, the more the pain I feel. Yeah, my heaven and hell, just smoking mirrors. It's just smoking mirrors. Days, bleeding nights, and I'm losing track. Every step I take forward, I'm pulled 2 steps back. I reach for my salvation, the lifeless hands of my go. In the darkness of my struggle, morning out of it's getting old. The whispers of temptation that keep dragging me down. So I stumble through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every line told is leading me on. Fumble through the sickness. It's real with the quickness. Everywhere I turn is a little more wrong. And the more that I punish myself, the more the pain I feel. In the end, my head and head is just smoking mirrors. It's just smoking mirrors. So I stumble through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every line I'm told is leading me on. Fumble through the sickness, gets real with the quickness. Everywhere I turn is a little more wrong. And the more that I punish myself, the more the pain I feel. In the end, my head in hell is just smoking mirrors. It's just smoking mirrors. Sounds of smoke and mirrors. Sounds of smoke and mirrors. This song's called "Smoke and Mirrors." It's my my latest single. There's a radio version and an acoustic version, which I'll be playing The song is one of the hardest songs I had to write because it's facing my substance abuse and addiction problems, and it's just kind of me crying out to me that I need to save myself. You know what I mean? So it's a tough song to write, but probably one of the most important songs I'll ever write. It's called "Smoke and Mirrors." Goes like this. I wake up with the sunrise, with the battles. Jesus, the battles. The song's called "Smoke and Mirrors." It's about my lifelong journey to sobriety. I haven't found it yet, but I'm working on it. So it's an important song for me. It goes like this. I wake up with the sunrise, with the shadows stay in a room full of echoes. I lose my way. I try to walk a straight line, but the road keeps on bending. When I stare into my own eyes, I see a world that's ending. I know I swore at least 1,000 times, but I stumble through the darkness. All these roads are endless. Every line I'm told is leading me on. Fumble through the sickness, gets rid with the quickness. Everywhere I turn is a little more wrong. Every morning I punish myself, the more the pain I feel. Getting in my head in hell, just smoking mirrors. It's just smoking mirrors. Days bleed into nights, I'm losing track. Every step I take forward, I'm pulled 2 steps back. Reaching my salvation, lifeless hands on mighty goal. In the darkness of my struggle, I'm worn out, it's getting old. But the whispers of temptation, they keep dragging me down. So I stumble through the darkness, all these roads are endless. Every line I'm told is leading me on. Fumble through the sickness, gets real with the quickness. Everywhere I turn is a little more wrong. In the morning I punish myself, the more the pain I feel. In my head in hell, it's just smoking mirrors. It's just smoking mirrors. So I stumble through the darkness, all these roads are endless. Every lie I told is leading me on. Fumble through the sickness, gets real with the quickness. Everywhere I turn is a little more wrong. And the more I punish myself, the more the pain I feel.
Getting my head is just smoking mirrors. It's just smoking mirrors. So just smoking mirrors.